They rise from the earth like echoes of something we've forgotten. Ancient temples carved into mountains, standing on windswept plains hidden beneath dense jungle canopies. Weathered by time, their stones speak in silence, etched with symbols we can't decipher, built with precision we still struggle to replicate. They defy not just erosion, but understanding. Each one whispers a question we can't quite answer. How? We're told history moves in a straight line, from primitive tools to pyramids, from myth to microscope. Yet across continents we find temples that rewrite this narrative. Structures older than the wheel, aligned with stars their builders supposedly couldn't see, carved in ways we can't recreate without machines we invented millennia later. These are not remnants of evolving civilizations, they are ruptures in our timeline. Take a moment. Close your eyes and imagine a 12,000-year-old site buried under the sands of Turkey, so precise in its layout that it mirrors celestial patterns. Or a temple in India, hewn from a single mountain, sculpted not from blocks but from the living rock, carved from the top down with impossible accuracy. No scaffolding, no blueprints, no explanation. Mainstream archaeology assures us there's always a logical answer. They say it's just a matter of time before we uncover the missing steps, the broken tools, the forgotten techniques. But what if those steps were never there? What if we're not looking at the beginning of something, but the echo of something much older, much more advanced? Around the world, temples like Nan Madol, Puma Punku, and the submerged ruins off Yonaguni whisper the same forbidden message, that our history may not be what we've been told. These sites aren't just architectural wonders, they're time bombs set to explode the stories we've comfortably accepted. They weren't built by the people we think or in the eras we believe. Some shouldn't even exist at all, not according to the science we trust. This isn't about conspiracy. It's about contrast. What we're taught versus what we find. What we assume versus what the stones insist. And so we begin a journey not just across space, but across time. From the high plateaus of Bolivia to the coral islands of Micronesia. From the jungles of Cambodia to the deserts of Egypt. We'll follow the cracks in the narrative, the overlooked anomalies, the places academia avoids looking too closely. This is not a story of history, it's a story of memory. A memory buried in stone, waiting to be heard. These are the temples that time forgot, but they haven't forgotten us. There comes a moment when standing before certain ancient structures where something inside you resists the explanation you've been given. A quiet rebellion. Not everything adds up. Not the tools, not the timelines, not the people credited with their creation. Take Göbekli Tepe, a site that predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years, yet boasts complex megalithic architecture and celestial alignment. Or the Kailasa Temple in India, carved top-down from solid mountain rock with no records of how it was done. Then there's Nan Madol, a floating stone city built on coral reefs with basalt pillars moved across miles of open sea by a people with no written language and no wheel. According to science, none of this should exist. And yet, it does. These temples sit like glitches in the matrix of history, fragments of something older, deeper, and more advanced than we're allowed to imagine. They call into question not only what we know about the past, but how we know it at all. This isn't about proving conspiracy, it's about following the cracks. And if you're willing to step into those cracks, you'll find a world that doesn't just challenge history. It rewrites it. 12,000 years ago, long before the wheel, before metal tools, before written language, a group of people gathered on a hillside in what is now southeastern Turkey. They were supposed to be primitive, nomadic, scattered bands of hunters and gatherers clinging to survival at the edge of the last ice age. And yet, they built Göbekli Tepe, Massive T-shaped pillars, each weighing up to 20 tons, were carved from limestone and arranged in perfect circular enclosures. The stones were lifted, transported, and placed with architectural precision. Some are etched with intricate symbols: foxes, birds, scorpions, serpents, forming what appear to be coded messages, mythological stories, or even astronomical references. And most astonishing of all, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried after centuries of use, as if someone wanted to hide it. Mainstream archaeology tells us complex architecture and organized religion arose only after the development of agriculture, that cities and temples came later when people settled, farmed, and built. But Göbekli Tepe upends this model entirely. It was built when humanity wasn't supposed to know how to build anything at all. How do nomads with no permanent homes manage this? No writing, no wheels, no pack animals, yet they aligned massive stone pillars with the stars. Some believe the site tracks constellations. Others suggest it reflects knowledge of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's rotation, a concept modern science only confirmed in recent centuries. If Göbekli Tepe was the work of hunter-gatherers, then our image of those ancestors must radically change. But there's another possibility. What if they inherited the knowledge from somewhere else? From someone else? The stones don't offer answers, only more questions. Who taught them this geometry? Why bury such a sacred site? And why does it feel more like a starting point than a culmination? We're not just looking at the oldest temple ever discovered, we're looking at the oldest known blueprint, one drawn not on parchment but in stone, one that suggests civilization began not with farming, but with memory. Memory of something greater, something forgotten. Göbekli Tepe shouldn't exist, but it does, and its presence forces us to confront a possibility far older than the pyramids, that we are not the first advanced humans to walk this earth. One of the most unsettling facts about Göbekli Tepe isn't just how old it is, but what happened to it. This massive complex, carved and constructed with unimaginable effort, was intentionally buried around 8000 BCE. Not abandoned, not destroyed by war or time, buried carefully, systematically, and deliberately. Thousands of tons of backfill were hauled in to cover the site. Stones, debris, even smaller artifacts were packed into the temple spaces, entombing the very structures that must have once held deep meaning. Who does that? Who buries their own temple not in panic but with purpose? This act raises more questions than any carving on the stones. Was it an attempt to protect the site from an oncoming disaster? Or to seal away knowledge no longer meant to be seen? Could the builders have feared what they had once celebrated? Mainstream explanations are vague. They suggest cultural shifts, migration, changing religious practices. But those answers feel incomplete. What culture creates a sacred monument on a scale that reshapes human history and then hides it? The burial of Göbekli Tepe isn't just an archaeological curiosity, it's a message, one whispered through thousands of years of silence. Something was preserved here, or perhaps concealed. And that single act of burying what should have been remembered opens the door to a larger, darker idea. That history as we know it may not be forgotten by accident, but erased by design. In the rugged hills of Maharashtra, India, there stands a temple that challenges every modern notion of what ancient people could do. The Kailasa Temple, part of the Ellora cave complex, isn't built from blocks or bricks. It was carved entirely from a single mountain of volcanic basalt, not assembled, extracted. What makes Kailasa truly mind-bending isn't just its size, it's the method. The structure was carved top-down, a process so counterintuitive and technically risky that few engineers today would even attempt it. A single misstep at the upper levels would have ruined everything below. And yet every detail remains pristine. Soaring columns, ornate deities, complex stairways and interior chambers cut with surgical precision. Estimates suggest over 400,000 tons of rock were removed, but no debris field has ever been found. No tool marks explain how it was done, and no mainstream theory truly satisfies the question. How did they achieve this with primitive tools? Modern architects and engineers have been candid. Recreating Kailasa with today's technology would take decades, even with lasers and cranes. But we're told it was carved in the 8th century, with chisels and hammers. It doesn't add up. Some propose the involvement of lost technologies, unknown tools, or even acoustic carving techniques lost to time. Others invoke divine inspiration, not out of superstition, but because the very existence of Kailasa feels like something beyond the reach of human hands. When you stand before it, there's a sacred tension in the air, a knowing, as if the temple wasn't merely built but revealed, as though the stone already held its form, waiting for someone to uncover it. This is no ordinary monument. Kailasa is an engineering miracle wrapped in myth, logic defying in its execution. And if it was possible then, it begs the question no one wants to ask. What else did they know that we've forgotten? In a world where ancient kings chronicled even minor victories in painstaking detail, it's the silence around Kailasa that feels most deafening. There are no blueprints, no inscriptions, no royal decrees boasting of its construction, no mention in temple records, religious texts, or imperial archives. A project of this scale should have generated years of documentation, and yet history offers only a void. Who ordered it built? How long did it take? How many labored to reveal it from the stone? No one knows. This absence is more than an oversight. It feels deliberate, as if someone wanted the origin of Kailasa to be forgotten, to obscure not just who built it, but how. Was the knowledge behind its construction forbidden? Was it inherited from a lost culture, a civilization whose memory had to be buried? The structure stands intact, mocking time, but the story of its creation is gone. And that silence might be more revealing than any scroll ever written. Off the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia lies a place that feels like it doesn't belong to our world. A dark, sprawling maze of stone rising from the ocean. Nan Madol. Often called the Venice of the Pacific, this mysterious city floats atop a network of artificial islets built entirely on coral reefs. But what truly defies explanation are the massive basalt columns stacked like giant logs, forming temples, tombs, and walkways all above the crashing waves. Some of these stones weigh up to 50 tons. There are nearly 100 structures arranged in geometric precision. Yet there's no evidence of cranes, wheels, or even a written language. No boats large enough to carry such cargo. No roads leading to the ocean, and no nearby source for the basalt itself. Mainstream archaeology dates the site to around the 12th century. But even that timeline feels shaky, based more on speculation than proof. Standing amid the ruins, surrounded by the hum of the Pacific and the dense enclosing silence, one can't help but feel it. An eerie presence. This place wasn't just constructed, it was positioned, aligned, anchored with a purpose long lost. How did it get here? Who built it and why? Nan Madol offers no answers. Only the haunting stone-still certainty that someone once knew more than we do now. What haunts Nan Madol isn't just the architecture, it's the absence of identity. No one knows the name of the people who built it. No written records, no lineage. Just local legends that speak in whispers of giants who moved stones with chance, of kings who communed with spirits, of forbidden knowledge carried in bloodlines that vanished without a trace. The Sodelur dynasty is often credited, but even native oral traditions describe the Sodelur as foreign rulers, not the original builders. So who came before them? Where did they go? Why did they leave behind a city in the sea? Some stories claim the city was abandoned after curses and wars. Others hint that the builders weren't human at all, but beings from the sky or survivors of a great flood who remembered an older, greater world. Echoes of Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, civilizations that may have existed before recorded time, erased by cataclysm. Modern historians dismiss these tales as myth, but the stones remain unyielding, unexplainable, and unapologetically real. Nan Madol stands as a testament to a people we cannot name, a purpose we cannot guess, and a past we're not supposed to remember. Beyond the pyramids and tourist crowds, deep in the temples of Abydos and Dendera, lie clues to a kind of technology we're not supposed to associate with the ancient world. Walls cut with such symmetry, such balance, that modern machinists have compared the tool marks to rotary cutters, as if lasers or high-speed drills had once traced the stone. Some columns appear lathed, granite boxes carved to tolerances of a fraction of a millimeter. Interior angles so precise they defy copper chisels and stone hammers. But it's not just visual perfection that stuns, it's resonance. In certain chambers, sounds don't just echo, they vibrate. Frequencies bounce in patterns that seem engineered. Some researchers have proposed these temples were acoustic devices designed to tune the human body, elevate consciousness, or interface with the spiritual realm through sound. Mainstream Egyptology sticks to the script: ceremonial function, primitive tools, skilled labor over centuries. But they can't explain how granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, was shaped as if it were clay, nor why builders with supposedly limited knowledge went to such obsessive lengths for acoustics they weren't supposed to understand. So we're left with a gap between what we're told ancient Egyptians were capable of and what the evidence in cold stone actually suggests. Were these temples more than places of worship? Were they machines coded in geometry and sound, left behind by a civilization that knew something we've forgotten? In the crypts beneath the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a strange relief catches the eye, an object that looks unmistakably like a modern light bulb. Long oval-shaped with filaments and a cable-like extension, it rests in the arms of a deity, surrounded by what appears to be an energy source. Mainstream scholars insist it's symbolic, a lotus flower with a snake, a spiritual metaphor. But others aren't so sure. Could this be evidence of ancient electrical knowledge, an artistic memory of something once real? Skeptics laugh it off. Believers point to missing soot marks in deep tombs, wondering how the ancients saw without flame. The truth? It sits somewhere in the shadows, between metaphor and mechanism. We're not claiming Egyptians had electricity, but we are asking, why does this image exist at all? In a place where light shouldn't have reached, the stone seems to whisper, "We once saw differently." Do you like this personality? High on the Andean plateau of Bolivia lies a site that shouldn't exist, Puma Punku. Scattered across the landscape are stone blocks so finely cut, so precisely engineered they seem less like ruins and more like the aftermath of a dismantled machine. The most famous of these are the H blocks, massive and identical, carved with interlocking precision. Perfect 90-degree angles, millimeter-level symmetry, intricate grooves and channels that suggest they were part of a larger mechanical design. Engineers today say even modern stonecutters would struggle to replicate them without diamond-tipped tools and computer-guided machinery. But according to official timelines, Puma Punku was built around 536 AD by a culture with no metal tools, no writing, and no known means of transport. So how did they do it? There are no quarries nearby, no evidence of chisels or primitive carving, just these mysterious blocks tossed across the plateau, as if by some forgotten force or a lost technology we've yet to rediscover. Was this the work of the Tiwanaku civilization? Or did they inherit something far older, the relics of a people wiped from memory by cataclysm or time? Puma Punku doesn't whisper like other sites. It shouts. And what it says is simple, unsettling, and hard to ignore. We weren't the first to master stone. Just a few miles from Puma Punku stands Tiwanaku, a site many believe to be the spiritual and cultural heart of the Andes, and perhaps something even older. Here, the stones don't just speak of structure. They measure the heavens. The Kailasa Temple, with its sun gates and aligned monoliths, is thought to have functioned as a precise solar and lunar observatory. Solstices, equinoxes, planetary cycles, all tracked with uncanny accuracy. Some researchers claim the temple aligns not to the sky we see today, but to how the stars appeared over 17,000 years ago. This would place Tiwanaku far beyond the accepted timeline for civilization in South America. Officially, the site dates to around 1500 BC, but its astronomical alignment suggests either a vastly older origin or access to star charts and knowledge lost in modern times. The Gateway of the Sun, one of the most iconic structures here, features carved figures and glyphs believed to encode astronomical data. Some interpretations claim it's a celestial calendar, tracking Venus and the lunar cycle with stunning precision. Were the Tiwanaku astronomers, engineers, or the heirs of a civilization erased from record? The stones don't answer in words. They measure time itself, silently reminding us that someone long before us looked to the sky and understood more than we do today. Beneath the waves off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, lies a mystery as deep as the ocean itself. At a depth of nearly 80 feet, massive stone structures stretch across the seafloor, vast terraces, sharp angles, staircases, and platforms that look startlingly deliberate. To some, it's clear. This is the remains of an ancient temple complex, possibly older than any known civilization. Divers describe doorways, stepped altars, and pathways leading to nowhere. From above, the site resembles a ziggurat, rising from the seabed like the ruins of a forgotten world. But mainstream geologists insist it's all natural, a quirk of sandstone fracturing shaped by currents and erosion. A geological coincidence, nothing more. Yet those who've descended into the depths tell a different story. The cuts are too clean, the symmetry too precise. Some believe it dates back over 10,000 years to a time before sea levels rose, a time that predates the rise of Mesopotamia or Egypt. What if this isn't just a strange rock formation, but a civilization swallowed by the sea? The debate remains unresolved. Science resists, but divers continue to return, drawn by the sense that something was left behind, a message carved into the ocean floor. And perhaps, as with so many ancient anomalies, the truth rests not in whether we can prove it, but in whether we're ready to believe we may have lost far more than we've ever found. Yonaguni may just be the beginning. Off the coast of Dwarka, India, sonar scans revealed submerged ruins believed to belong to an ancient port city, complete with walls, roads, and what some say are temples. Indian texts spoke of Dwarka as the kingdom of a god, dismissed for centuries as mythology, until it was found beneath the waves. In Cuba, divers have captured sonar images of symmetrical structures lying deep in the Caribbean, far too deep for any known human civilization to have built. What connects these sites? A simple, chilling possibility. They were built before the end of the last ice age, when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. Then the waters rose, and history reset. If civilizations once lined these ancient shorelines, how much have we lost to the ocean? And more importantly, what secrets still lie waiting in the silence below? High in the Ethiopian highlands, hidden in the red dust of time, lie a cluster of structures that defy both reason and chronology. The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. Unlike most ancient buildings, these churches weren't built up. They were carved down. Entire sanctuaries, some over 40 feet deep, chiseled out of solid volcanic rock. Doorways, windows, columns, and cross-shaped roofs, all sculpted with meticulous symmetry directly from the bedrock. There are no seams, no bricks, just monolithic artistry hollowed from within. Local legend says these marvels were completed in a matter of days with the help of angels. And when you stand before them, it's not hard to see why the divine is invoked: the silence, the scale, the impossible craftsmanship. These aren't just places of worship, they feel like portals carved with intention, coded in stone. No scaffolding, no modern tools, and no plausible explanation. The techniques required to sculpt so deep with such structural balance challenge even today's engineers. Like India's Kailasa Temple, the churches of Lalibela whisper of lost techniques and perhaps shared origins. Historians place them in the 12th century, but some carvings seem older, far older. Were they built atop something ancient? Or were they part of a spiritual technology designed to harmonize matter and spirit through sacred geometry? In Ethiopia, faith and mystery are carved into the same stone, and the deeper you go, the more the silence seems to speak. Lalibela's mystery runs deeper still into the heart of one of history's most elusive relics, the Ark of the Covenant. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, the real Ark, the vessel said to carry divine power, was brought from Jerusalem thousands of years ago. And today they claim it resides in Axum in a modest chapel guarded by a single monk, a man who cannot leave and whom no one may approach. The connection? Lalibela wasn't just a city of worship. It was a symbolic New Jerusalem carved after Ethiopia's rulers declared themselves custodians of the Ark. Every passage, every chamber is said to reflect biblical parallels, secrets encoded in stone. Mainstream historians remain silent, uncomfortable perhaps with a narrative that places the world's holiest relic in Africa rather than in Rome, Israel, or a museum vault. But here in the highlands, the Ark is not a myth. It is memory, and Lalibela may be the echo of a forgotten covenant. From Turkey to Bolivia, from India to the Pacific, ancient temples share a pattern that mainstream history refuses to explain. A pattern of precision, celestial alignment, and construction so advanced it would challenge us even today. How can cultures supposedly separated by oceans, time, and technological barriers produce such eerily similar structures? Megalithic stones cut with machine-like accuracy. Temples aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and star systems known only through modern astronomy. Echoes of geometry, myth, and meaning repeated across continents with no evidence of shared contact. This isn't coincidence, it's consistency. The conventional story tells us these civilizations developed independently, slowly, chaotically, through isolated trial and error. But the stones suggest otherwise. They suggest knowledge, global knowledge, a framework of understanding that transcended borders and eras, a memory that once united humanity, then fractured and faded. What if there was once a civilization or a network of civilizations that existed before the flood myths, before written history, before even memory itself? One that understood the stars, energy, and the earth in ways we no longer do. One that passed down echoes not through books but through stone, temples as databanks, monuments as messages. But then something happened, a reset, a cataclysm. And what remained were fragments, scattered across the world like broken mirrors reflecting a forgotten whole. The pattern is too vast to ignore, yet we're told not to see it. Mainstream archaeology avoids connecting the dots, labeling anomalies as flukes, myths as fantasy. But when so many outliers point to the same truths, the outliers stop being exceptions and start being evidence. This is not a call to believe in fantasy. It's an invitation to remember what we may have once known, before time and tides erased the footprints of a civilization that walked far ahead of us. Ask the wrong question in academia, and you risk more than just ridicule. You risk your career. Those who challenge the orthodox timeline, who point to ancient anomalies, to sites that shouldn't exist, are often dismissed as fringe, pseudoscientific, or conspiratorial. Not because their evidence is weak, but because their questions are dangerous. Dangerous to funding, to reputation, to a system built not to explore uncertainty but to preserve consensus. It's easier and safer to label Göbekli Tepe a ritual site than to ask who taught hunter-gatherers advanced engineering. Easier to ignore the tool marks at Puma Punku than to admit we don't have the tools to replicate them. Truth, in this context, isn't always about facts. It's about comfort. And the moment you suggest that an unknown intelligence may have existed before us, you disrupt the story we've been told about ourselves, that we are the pinnacle, the first, the only. But truth doesn't fear questions, and this series doesn't ask you to believe in conspiracy. It simply asks, what happens when we follow the evidence, not the narrative? The cost of asking may be high, but the cost of ignoring? Far greater. Across the world they still stand, silent, ancient, immovable. Temples carved from mountain faces, aligned to stars we barely understand, built with skills we can't reproduce. We call them places of worship, monuments, ruins, but maybe they are something else entirely. Maybe they are messages, not in language we can read, but in geometry, resonance, alignment. Messages not for their time, but for ours. Triggers for memory. Anchors for truth. What if the great structures of the ancient world aren't the beginning of civilization, but the last surviving echoes of something far older? A civilization not wiped away by ignorance or progress, but by flood, fire, or forgetting. One that once knew the stars like family. One that didn't separate the sacred from the scientific. One that understood that to build in stone was to speak across time. We've been taught that we are the apex of human development, that before us was nothing but mud huts and myth. But what if the truth is more complicated? What if we are not the first, but the latest? A species with amnesia, walking unknowingly through the ruins of something greater. It's not just about architecture, it's about identity. Who we are, where we came from, what we've lost. When you look at Göbekli Tepe, Kailasa, Nan Madol, or Puma Punku, you're not just seeing stone, you're seeing resistance against time, against forgetting, against the flattening of mystery into myth. And if these places still speak, then perhaps the question isn't, how were they built? But why were they left? Maybe they were never meant to be solved, only remembered. Maybe the ancient world didn't leave behind puzzles, but mirrors. And when we look into them, we don't see gods or aliens. We see ourselves from a time when we still remembered who we truly were. Beneath cities and forests, beneath oceans and deserts, lie the unopened chapters of our past. Entire worlds buried by sand, swallowed by water, or sealed beneath layers of denial. We think of history as a forward march. But what if the most important parts of our story don't lie ahead, but beneath us? The silence beneath our feet is not empty. It waits, patient, undisturbed, ancient. It waits for curious minds to ask the wrong questions, to dig in forbidden places, to see not just what's in front of them, but what lies just below the surface. Maybe history isn't a straight line. Maybe it's a cycle of rising, falling, forgetting, and remembering. The temples we've explored in this journey may be more than wonders. They may be warnings. What if the truth we seek isn't lost, just buried? The real mystery isn't whether the past was more advanced than we believed. The real mystery is, why are we so afraid to remember it? And so the stones remain, silent, ancient, enduring, until we are ready to listen.